Well, there's fallout after Donald Trump campaign rallies take a violent turn. One event in Chicago canceled because of security concerns. Still, his supporters clashed with protesters, and while Trump refuses to tone down his rhetoric, we have the question, is the media coverage of the violence playing a role here in helping fan the flames? Joining us now, Tammy Bruce, radio talk show host at TammyBruce.com and a Fox News contributor. Brian Joyce is radio host of The Brian Joyce Show. Tammy, if there is violence at a Donald Trump rally, do the media share the blame?
Look, I think that it is newsworthy. It's coverage. It's something that's happening that deserves to be covered. At the same time, this is something we've seen for 7-8 years under the current Democratic leadership. This is one of their dynamics when it comes to a campaign season, but just in general. This is not surprising. We've seen it on the campuses. Think about Mizzou. We've seen it in the streets, the murders of the police in Ferguson, in Baltimore. To suggest, though, that one individual is suddenly responsible for what's occurring, that's the problem. No, none of the media, with the exception perhaps of Politico, which finally came out with a story about the groups behind this, are asking the right questions like, who's funding this? How did it get organized so quickly? Who is behind it? Where are the leadership? How did they advertise it? Those are questions that should be asked. The media is covering it, though, like it's reality television, and that's the mistake. And then there is everyone's throwing their lot in with the main narrative, which is that Donald Trump's responsible. Well, look, Donald Trump has not been doing this for 7 years, and we've been seeing this all over the country for that long.
Brian, give us your take.
Well, first of all, I agree and I disagree with Tammy. Number one, it is Donald Trump's fault. These outside agitators that she talks about, these people have been showing up to campaign rallies and events all year long. They show up to dozens of them every single month. It's only at Donald Trump's rallies right now where we see this level of violence. It was just a couple of months ago where Black Lives Matter protesters literally booed Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton off the stage. There was no violence. There was no bloodshed. There was no punching and kicking. Donald Trump is to blame for the violence that is going on at his rallies right now. That being said, the media always plays a little bit of a role. Like Tammy said, we have to cover these events. Whether it's campaign violence, whether it be mass shootings, whether it be terrorist attacks. It's our job as TV hosts and radio hosts to cover these events. And, of course, every time we do that, we just give these events more attention.
Joe Concha, who is a frequent guest of ours on this media panel, wrote over the weekend that this is not about free speech. He says it's about scorched earth and creating chaos on the campaign trail.
Yeah.
Tammy?
Yeah, look, this is what's interesting. This is not going to end. Whoever the nominee is, this is what's going to occur throughout the Republican season. You're going to see this through the summer. They say now it's the excuse that it's Donald Trump, but let me suggest, and I agree in part with the notion that they've been out all this time, these agitators. But isn't it interesting? Because Donald Trump has been making these comments for months, and suddenly, just before Super Tuesday, is when this begins to emerge in this fashion. His rhetoric is nothing new, and yet there hadn't been. And even what maybe 500,000 people have gone out to his rallies, and there are horrible instances, which we all agree should not have occurred, but maybe 3 or 4 involving the press and then that one jerk who sucker punched the protester, those are unacceptable. But considering the number of people at these rallies, that there are so few instances, and then all of a sudden this occurs, that should be a story for the media. That should be one of the elements that is looked into. Is like, why now? Who's doing it, and what made the factor different? And again, it's also about freedom of expression, of course, and conflating this notion that the victim or the target is responsible is also not right.
It's a campaign season now, Brian, in which social media makes it so easy for people who have a cause to get together and rally all of their supporters to come and do the same kind of thing that they want to do, maybe disrupt.
Right, right. And Tammy is right when she says the media plays a little bit of a role here. For example, that punch that was thrown at the rally in Concord, North Carolina. Of course, I guarantee that a lot of the protesters in Chicago, they saw that punch. They saw it on Twitter. They saw it on social media. They see it when they tune into cable news. And, yeah, I have no doubt that they're taking their cues from that. They've seen footage of Trump and his supporters getting violent with protesters. So they showed up to Chicago ready to get violent. And so, yeah, there's a lot of flames being a lot of flames being inflamed every single day, it seems.
But the media, what are the media supposed to do, Tammy? Not cover it?
Well, no, context. Well, context, you guys, right? It's
Right.
about, of course, we
Right.
cover it. And the difference is having this conversation, is the context that we've just had about the few people that have done it with Trump, the nature of how these agitators have been out for years, not just for the last 1 year, who's behind it, what they suppose, and how it will continue regardless of who the nominee is. All those elements of context, I think, are important within the coverage.
All right, we're going to have to leave it there. Tammy Bruce, Brian Joyce, thank you both.
Thanks, guys.